I really want to say extensions in here so bad, but a lot of people will fuck it up. So I don't want to say it in there. You know, if you have biceps, then extensions are fucking.
Get the fuck up. Simon says, get the fuck up. Throw your hands in the sky.
The question is a real general question, and is what are the top 5 accessory movements? I'm going to make some assumptions here to make the answer a little bit easier to address, and assume that you're speaking about powerlifting and you're speaking about the power lifts. So I was asked to explain exactly what I mean by accessories. And for this question, I'm going to just include anything outside of the squat, bench, and deadlift as being an accessory. If you followed me and you know how I train and how I develop strength programs, I will have supplemental movements and accessory movements. For just the ease of answering this question, I'm calling everything an accessory movement because not everybody uses a concurrent training approach, you know, and it's just easier to just do it this way. So it's anything except for the squat, bench, and deadlift. So for the squat, I'd say the top accessory movements are going to be some type of close stance squat, you know, be it a low box squat, a front squat, or a safety bar squat, or a cambered bar squat. Just something that's going to be a closer stance than what you would typically do. And it's also going to be lower than what you would typically go. Unless you already squat, you know, ass to grass, which most powerlifters don't. You're going to squat to legal depth. For this, I'm talking about taking it down, you know, way down. So for me, it would be an 8 to 10 inch box is what I would use for this. And it's a closer stance and it's going to be really fucking hard. It's also a great accessory for your deadlift, by the way. The next for the squat would be the good morning, but I'm not going to say that's for everybody. I'm going to say it's, you know, for about 50% of the people out there. Some people, heavy triples on the good morning, going real heavy, are great for them. Some people do great going super heavy on the good mornings and just builds the shit out of their squat. Other people, it really doesn't help them a whole lot unless they keep the weight light and do sets of 3 to 5. But either way, I think the good morning falls in there. It's just the execution of the good morning is definitely going to change. And that's, I think, based upon the torso, how long the torso is. A longer torso usually gets away with and makes better progress doing things like suspended good mornings and, you know, heavier good mornings. Shorter torso gets better results doing the lighter, you know, sets of 5 and really pushing back on their heels and kind of driving into their hamstrings for that. The third for the squat would be, a lot of these kind of coincide with the deadlift. Glute ham raises for the hamstring, working both origin and insertion, and hanging leg raises because you are stretching the hip flexors. You're in a position to where your hip flexors and abdominals are going to work at the same time, and you're not putting yourself in a position that keeps shortening the hip flexors. A lot of what powerlifters do and a lot of the movements that powerlifters do are tightening the hip flexors to a large degree. And you can do stretching for the hip flexors and mobility work for the hip flexors and all that other kind of stuff to help with that. You know, I get that. I also get that most don't ever do it. So if you throw in hanging leg raises, that's kind of forcing, you know, hip mobility work as well as abdominal work on them for that reason. That's really it for the squat. You know, it's after that you're starting to deal with a whole host of different things that I can't really rank in any way whatsoever. They just fall into this hodgepodge of things that may or may not help. It's really specific on the individual and what their weak points are. Those are things that I think can help every powerlifter, no matter who they are. Now, how they prioritize them and put them in their programs, completely a different thing. For the bench press, some type of close grip bench press would be up there for sure. And that includes, you know, close grips on boards, close grips to your chest, close grips on an incline, you know, anything from a close grip perspective is definitely on there. While I'm not a big fan of overhead pressing at all, I do put it on the list because I have seen it help, and I've been told it helps a ton of lifters. Never helped me, but you know, we're not talking about my training program here. We're talking about feedback that I've also received from that. From that, personally, if I was to put it in somebody's program, I'd rather see it done as a one-arm dumbbell press instead of a barbell overhead, but that's personal preference. Next would be a JM press, which when done properly is kind of the combination of a close grip bench press and extension. I really, really want to say extensions in here so bad, but a lot of people will fuck it up. So I don't want to say it in there. You know, if you have biceps, then extensions are fucking awesome for your bench press. If you don't have biceps, then they're not so awesome because the lever's going to become too long. And by that, I mean your forearm will hit your bicep at a certain point, which kind of shortens up the range of motion a little bit, and then you can roll it back. They're calling rolling tricep extensions, which I think are awesome for your bench. For the deadlift, I'm going to say deficit deadlifts. I'm not a big fan of rack pulls at all, but I do like pulling off blocks. So basically, we're going to say it's exactly the same thing as a rack pull. All right, the bar's in the same position, but instead of pulling off pins, you have the plate sitting on blocks. The difference is it's how the weight's going to move. You know, how the weight is distributed between a rack and off of the blocks. When you're pulling off of the blocks and you pull onto the bar, that bar is going to flex all the way out to the plates. When you're pulling off pins, that bar is going to flex until it actually gets to the pins, and then you know, it's going to come up. So if you're doing multiple reps, the pins beat the shit out of your back. When you're doing multiple reps, when it's off of blocks, it's still going to beat the shit out of your back, but nowhere near the same as what the jarring is going to be when it's off the pins. You know, the pulling off of the blocks still allows a little bit of the bar flex. Even if it is a stiff bar, then you're going to get pulling off of the pins as well, which is a more natural type of motion. Then I would probably put in for the deadlift the reverse hyper. You know, I don't really think so much for the strength aspect, but from the back health aspect, which is debated. You know, it's debated to death. But you know, you asked my question, so I'm giving you my answer based upon what I've seen. So those would be the top accessories that I would see for the power lifts. I may have forgot one just because it didn't come to my mind, but if it didn't come to my mind, then maybe it's really not that important. You know, the best specific thing for a beginner or a novice to do is just something like, Dave, you got like 6 weeks of glycogen in your system right now. You know that, so I kind of knew it was going to be a long